Good day, everyone. 'Tis I, the Blue Baron, defender of traditionalism. Fides Traditio Monarchia!
And I'm Manfred, his red-tailed hawk.
Now that we've looked at the earliest piece of animation, and the piece that set the standard for animation to come, we're going to look at the defining era of animation. After the early successes of Winsor McCay in the 1910s, animation took a downward dive when it came to detail and lasting impact. From around 1919 to 1929, there existed an era in which many animated shorts were made, but relatively few are remembered today. In fact, you could say this was a rather silent era in animation.
Really?
Fine, let's move on. Despite the initial successes of Winsor McCay, most animation in the 1910s had tended to be stiff and jerky. However, this all changed with the Austro-Hungarian animator Max Fleischer's development of the rotoscope, a combined projector and easel for tracing images from live-action film. This device enabled artists to trace outlines from single frames of a motion picture in order to create animated characters that move like real-life people, which enabled Fleischer to produce the first realistic animation since the initial works of Winsor McCay. Although his patent was granted in 1917, Max and his brothers Joe and Dave Fleischer made their first series of tests between 1914 and 1916. Audiences were entranced by the fluid movement rotoscopes could produce, leading to the Fleischer's character Coco the Clown making his first public appearance in their series Out of the Inkwell, which was first released on August 30th, 1919. Mind you, the Clown wasn't called Coco until 1924. A New York Times reviewer wrote, "He walks, dances, and leaps as a human being, as a particularly easy-limbed human being might." Despite being a success at the time, Coco the Clown is more or less faded into obscurity today. However, that same year there appeared a character that is widely considered to be the first cartoon star, Felix the Cat. Felix the Cat debuted on November 9, 1919, in a cartoon titled Feline Follies, made as a short for Paramount Pictures. Produced by Pat Sullivan's New York City-based animation studio, the cartoon was directed by cartoonist and animator Otto Mesmer. It was a success, and the Sullivan studio quickly set to work on producing another film featuring this character and musical muse, released November 16, 1919. It too proved to be successful with audiences. However, in his first two appearances, he wasn't called Felix the Cat, but simply Master Tom. He did not receive the name Felix until his third cartoon, The Adventures of Felix, on December 14, 1919. Some level of disagreement exists over how the name originated. Otto Mesmer claims that John King of Paramount Magazine suggested the name Felix after the Latin words felis, cat, and felix, happy, whereas Pat Sullivan claimed he himself named Felix after Australia Felix, the name given by explorer Thomas Mitchell to the lush pasture he encountered on an expedition to Western Victoria in 1836. At any rate, Felix the Cat was a resounding success. Paramount Pictures continued to distribute the earliest films from 1919 to 1921, and Margaret J. Winkler took over distribution beginning in 1922. In 1924, animator Bill Nolan redesigned the character, making him both rounder and cuter, and further increasing his appeal among moviegoers. Then, finally, in 1925, Educational Pictures took over the distribution of the shorts, and Mr. Sullivan promised them one new Felix short every 2 weeks. The combination of solid animation, skillful promotion, and widespread distribution brought Felix's popularity to new heights. In fact, not only did audiences love him, he was popular among critics of the time as well. His cartoons have been cited as imaginative examples of surrealism in filmmaking. Felix has been said to represent a child's sense of wonder, creating the fantastic when it is not there, and taking it in stride when it is. His famous pace, hands behind the back, head down, deep in thought, became a trademark that has been analyzed by critics around the world. Felix's expressive tail, which could be a shovel one moment, an exclamation mark or pencil the next, serves to emphasize that anything can happen in his world. Aldous Huxley wrote that the Felix shorts prove that what the cinema can do better than literature or the spoken drama is to be fantastic. Overall, I would say that taken as a whole, Felix the Cat was pretty good. The animation may not be as detailed or realistic as that of Winsor McCay, but it did demonstrate the viability of cartoons as a series instead of just standalone shorts. In addition, from the shorts I've seen, it holds up quite well today, and while not on the same level as later animated series, it demonstrated that cartoons could have plots of their own and not simply showcase what animation can do. It also proved that animation is no barrier to social commentary or references to current events, in shorts such as Felix All Puzzled, 1924, where Felix visits Russia, at that time having just recently been taken over and murdered from within by the revolutionaries, and remarks that all I found in Russia was trouble. Sadly, though, despite Felix's popularity, he would not survive as the face of, or even a notable face of, animation past the 1920s. The main reason for this being in the popularization of synchronized sound. With the advent of synchronized sound in the 1927 film The Jazz Singer, Educational Pictures, who distributed the Felix shorts at the time, urged Pat Sullivan to make the leap to talkie cartoons, but Pat Sullivan refused. Further disputes led to a break between Educational and Sullivan in 1928, after which the cartoons were distributed by Copley Pictures. Because of this refusal, other studios were able to jump ahead and make the transition to sound cartoons first. In May 1924, Max Fleischer, whom you remember created the Out of the Inkwell series, had created Song Cartoons, a series of short 3-minute animation films produced by Max Fleischer and Dave Fleischer between May 1924 and September 1927, pioneering the use of the Follow the Bouncing Ball device used to lead audiences in theater sing-alongs. The Song Cartoons also ended up pioneering the application of sound film to animation as early as 1924, and creating their first synchronized sound animated film with My Old Kentucky Home in April 1926. 2 years after which, Paul Terry released his short Dinner Time in October 14, 1928, and Walt Disney released Steamboat Willie in November 18, 1928. Only after these competing studios released the first synchronized sound animated films did Mr. Sullivan see the possibilities of sound. He managed to secure a contract with First National Pictures in 1928. However, for reasons unknown, this did not last, so Sullivan sought out Jack Kopfstein and Copley Pictures to distribute his new Sound Felix cartoons. On the 16th of October, 1929, an advertisement appeared in Film Daily with Felix announcing, Jolson-like, "You ain't heard nothing yet." Unfortunately, Felix's transition to sound was not a smooth one. Sullivan did not carefully prepare for Felix's transition and added sound effects into the sound cartoons as a post-animation process. The results were disastrous. More than ever, it seemed as though Disney's mouse was drawing audiences away from Sullivan's silent star. Not even entries such as the Fleischer-style offbeat Felix Who's Whoopie in 1931 or the silly symphony-esque April Maze, 1930, could regain the franchise's audience. As a result, the Felix the Cat series reached its end, and despite a brief revival in 1936 for 3 more cartoons, Felix the Cat's place in the public's mind would go on instead to be filled by, you guessed it, Mickey Mouse. Well, that about wraps up this episode of Animation Antiquities. Join us next time on our mini-series when we'll be looking at the beginnings of Walt Disney and how he would later go on to have a massive impact on animation in the 1920s, 30s, and beyond. I'm the Blue Baron, defender of traditionalism. God bless you all, and remember, Fides Traditio Monarchia. where Felix visits Russia, at that time having been just recently taken over and murdered from within by the revolutionaries, and remarks that all I found in Russia was trouble. You're supposed to laugh heartily at that.
You're making a joke about Russia.
Yes. And remarks that all I found in Russia was trouble. You're supposed to laugh heartily.
I can't laugh I can't heartily laugh. It's something that's laugh.
Well, chuckle or something. I don't know. Or try that one more time. No, but I mean after I say it. It has to be. Hang on.